Thank you for listening to the Old English D podcast. New episodes are live every Tuesday, so make sure to subscribe and follow to keep up to date on all the new episodes. And as we always say, go Tigers.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Old English D, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Casey, as always joined by Josh, my friend, my compatriot. Did you see the solar eclipse, my buddy?
Still am seeing it currently. This is what happens when you do not wear your eclipse glasses and still attempt to look at it.
Did you see the thing where, like all across the path of totality, there was a spike in quote unquote my eyes hurt in the search history for Google all across the country?
I did see that. I was telling my coworkers about it and they thought it was pretty funny. No, I in all seriousness, it was just a couple of glances I tried to get at. I did do the millennial, boomer thing where I tried to take a picture of it, and now I have a bunch of pictures of the sun on my phone, but I was too lazy to go out and actually find eclipse glasses. But it did seem a little funky.
They say it can ruin the mechanics of your camera. So everyone was like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna take a picture of it with my phone." And then everyone was like, "Oh no, don't do that. Don't because it can do to your camera lens what it does to your eye, apparently." And yeah, I tried to sneak a couple peeks without the glasses. Real bad. I mean, it was real sunny. It was real sunny. I'm like, oh, that actually legitimately hurt. Yeah. So I actually had a coworker who had a pair of the they're glorified 3D glasses. That's all those are. Mm-hmm. And it sounded like all the libraries were sold out of the glasses, and so I actually lucked out. I was very, very happy. But what an experience. The Tigers were talking about when they were in Pittsburg, and it's just, they were like, I think Shelby Miller was doing an interview with Johnny Kane, and Chafin was there, and they were just sitting out in the yard and on the field, and Shelby was like, yeah, I got a little emotional. And I kind of got what he was saying. It's a very interesting experience. It kind of puts you in your place. You're like, wow, they're like celestial bodies in space, just kind of moving independently of what we're doing. And then also there's the moon that is gravitationally fixed to us. And every once in a while, I don't know, 30 some odd years, we get a situation like this. The next one's not till 2044. Kind of hope I'm dead by then.
Can we get off on a wait a minute.
I'm just kidding.
Let's just gonna skip past that real quick. Can we talk real fast? And I'm not going to get off on a eclipse tangent, I promise. But the fact that there are bodies, just objects in space that can line up at the exact the right angle for this to happen in the first place is wild to me. Second of all, the fact that scientists have gotten this down to a science to predict when it's going to happen is also wild to me. Just my 2 cents on this whole situation.
I mean, you to the flat earthers, you're saying something quite controversial. So I need you to slow your roll just a bit.
You're not a flat earther, so I'll say what I please.
I know a couple. I know a few. Did you see the shots of the satellites taking the picture of the Earth's surface with the shadow of the moon coming across? Did you see these?
I didn't see that. I did see someone in a commercial airliner that caught it in the air above the clouds, and that was pretty crazy.
It was kind of, and I was on lunch, and I was just kind of sitting there, and you can kind of just, I mean, we had, I think the totality or the most of our path of where we're at, I think it got to 85% coverage or 90% coverage or something in Western Michigan. And it's kind of eerie when the whole lighting in the world changes. It's like someone forgot to turn the house lights on at church. And it's just
I compared it
It's like,
two things to compare it to. I compared it like when I walked outside, I was like, okay, this is what it looks like when I'm wearing sunglasses, but I'm not wearing sunglasses.
right.
And
It is.
also,
It's a,
it
you
felt
can't shake
so
it.
cool,
Yeah.
like so much cooler out, and I was like, I was not ready for that either. That was
Oh,
weird.
you're saying temperature wise.
Yeah, it felt like it went down a
Yeah.
little bit because obviously less of the sun is hitting the earth at that particular time, so it would make sense if it got a little cooler. Maybe I was imagining it. I don't know.
No, I don't think you were. I wasn't outside at the time, but I mean that seems to make sense. That seems to check out with the science. No, it was a really cool event. I would have loved to be at PNC Park, and shout out one of our diehard listeners, Ben, one of my buddies who actually lives in Ohio, went to high school with him, but he actually got to go to the first Pittsburgh game. Not such a great result as a diehard Tigers fan, but he was there. He wasn't actually at PNC though for the eclipse. They didn't open in time, which kind of blows my mind. Like, I don't know, like I feel like when you have that kind of event and you have such a big opening, I feel like you can kind of market that for a ballpark. But whatever, I digress. But he was saying he was at the zoo, and the animals there were like flipping out. Like they were just acting super crazy and like kind of like full moon kind of vibes, but even crazier than that. I'm like, is it all, is there some kind of connect? Is the force real? Like what do we got here? There's some kind of energy going on. Yeah, it was an experience and a half. But I had one of my other coworkers, actually, he went down to Ohio, and he was one of the people that definitely reserved a Airbnb like all of the people in the Path of Totality did, and he said he had a really cool experience, and I mean, like it really is like a once in a lifetime kind of gig, and I'm like, I didn't care about it until it was happening, and I'm like, dang, I'm really glad that I had the glasses. I'm glad I was able to actually view it, and yeah, I think it just was like, oh, this is happening, and then it was like, oh, this is really cool. This is something that's really, really cool. But I don't know, eclipses or not, the Tigers played some baseball games. Of course, this is the Old English D, a Detroit Tigers podcast where you and I get around a mic every week and we talk a little bit about our favorite baseball team. You can find us on all the socials at the Old English Pod, and you can listen to us on all the podcast services you are normally used to. It was a little bit of a rough weekend, so we took some time away. I had a lot of work stuff going on. You had a lot of work stuff going on. Of course, you got the family. We're like, we need to take a breather. And so post A's series, post first game of the Pirates series, we're like, yeah, all right, we are feeling it. But we've maybe come out of the rut. The Tigers are showing up today on the off day, 7-4, coming back home. We might have some weather in the forecast for the next couple games against the Twins here, so we're kind of on the fritz about that. But we're maybe getting out of the little bit of lull that we experienced after starting out 5-1. Talk to me a little bit about your emotions kind of after the weekend and what you were feeling.
You talked me off a ledge very early. I think it was in the Mets series where they were not hitting very well, and I had struggled with it, and I kind of came to terms with it, and then we both kind of had a huge relapse at the end of that A's series. Just a lot of frustration because it feels like the Tigers are doing a lot of things right at the plate, and that's where a lot of our ire is being drawn to currently. But it feels like they are doing a lot of good things at the plate and just not capitalizing, not getting rewarded, not getting good bounces on things. Just a whole, mishmash of different things that are not going right on the offensive side of things. And that's putting strain on the pitching staff, and that's it's not good, especially if you've got guys that are trying to have bounce back seasons, guys that are trying to, make a name for themselves, a la Reese Olson, guys like that. So it's just a lot of frustration over the offense because I feel like it's affecting the entire team.
It feels like they are quite passive at the plate right now.
Hmm.
It's almost like what Torque struggled with in his first year, where he was always kind of coined as a really patient hitter, and then you kind of get to the big leagues and you have to be very very specific at what pitches you plan to attack and what you actually pull the trigger on, and it seemed like he was always pulling the trigger not enough at the pace that we were wishing and hoping for, and it just seems like a malaise kind of fell over this team for 3 games, 3 or 4 games really, and really it was 3.5 games up until the end of the Pirates games, and the thing is too is like it wasn't just that we were losing, it was how we were losing, and it was to the teams that we were losing to, and it's just like my goodness, like what is happening now? Interesting thing about the A's series, and we should have saw this coming. Apparently, the Tigers' record against the A's at Comerica Park for the last, I think it's like 5 or 6 years or something, is 4-22
So the
at Comerica.
So, and this is funny because Evan Woodbury tweeted this out a few days ago, right at the end of that A's series. The last time the Tigers won a home series against the A's was April 25th through the 28th, 2016. Since then, they are 4-21 against the A's at Comerica Park.
I mean, it's just like, what is that? Like a team that we would all classify as not a very good baseball team, and they really haven't been for quite a while. They're definitely going through it, and they just can't seem to put things together against these mediocre teams. And then it seems like for the last couple of years, we've always shown up against really good baseball teams. Had a little bit of a negative experience with the AL East last year, but really who didn't? And those are all good baseball teams. But at the same time, it's like the teams that we should beat and really should stomp on, we're not. And it seems we're kind of starting out this year a little bit in the same place. And that kind of leads perfectly into my first takeaway of our few takeaways that we have for the series over the weekend, and then these couple games, quick getaway series against the Pirates at Pittsburgh. Baseball is just such a finite and fickle and high and low kind of endeavor. Like we are just so in it, and we live and die pretty much by every pitch. And riding the ebbs and flows of this baseball team is so hard. And I think it's even worse and maybe even more magnified this year because we know there's a good baseball team under there. We know there's underpinnings of good habits forming and really good decision making forming. And it's just not paying off, kind of like what you were saying. Like it just seems like if you chose to swing a pitch earlier or a pitch later, or if you had just gotten one better hop here or one better bounce here, things would have gone a different way. And unfortunately for the Tigers, we found ourselves, and we're still 7-4, so there's a lot of optimism still in Tiger Town, but it just feels like there could have been an even better start, an even better situation that we find ourselves in. And I think for us, right, where we're at, we played 11 games, right? It's tough to start to look at the calendar and say, man, these are important baseball games, or man, these are baseball games that matter. But kind of from where we're at and honestly where we want to be, I mean, like this Twins series is kind of a big series for us early, the second, third week of April. And it's just so easy to get caught up in, oh my gosh, the world's ending in these 3-game stretches. And then, oh my gosh, everything is going right, and we're on cloud 9 for 3 or 4 games. I think kind of diagnosing the early successes, the 5-1 start. If you kind of look at the wins that we had, it's not a sustainable system, right? It's not a sustainable way to win baseball games, and it's mostly dependent on that pitching and less so a sparky offense. And so, you have a couple things go your way or a couple things not go your way, and those outcomes completely change. And so when we're in these stretches of, oh my gosh, the world is falling down, or, oh my gosh, everything is going our way, I think for us as Tiger fans, it's so important just to kind of keep a level head and, realize like, okay, the world's not ending. It's okay. I know it's the A's. The A's seem to have good luck against us at Comerica. It's just a baseball thing. The world's going to keep on spinning. I know for you were mentioning a little bit, you were talking off the ledge. You talked me off a ledge a little bit too, where you were talking about, you went back to your prediction. You were saying that you want them to be, I think 14-16, right?
Mm-hmm.
By the end of April. And it's like, well, we're 7-4 and we already have half the wins 9 days, now 10 days into April. And we already have half the wins that you were going for. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And I mean, if we're hovering right around that 500 mark, maybe there's some, good baseball to be played the rest of the season. How have you kind of reconciled the ebbs and flows of this baseball team?
Well, like you said, it's you try to have a good all-around perspective on it. I think one of the things hitting-wise that really has helped me keep the faith, if you will, a little bit is Baseball Savant has a really nice layout of expected hitting statistics where they take, I forget how they run their formula, but for 3 different stats, they have batting average, expected batting average, slugging percentage, expected slugging percentage, and then WOBA and expected WOBA. WOBA is just your quality of contact, how hard you're hitting the ball, plus strikeouts and walks. So they take a few things into consideration. And in all 3 of those stats, the difference between the team's expected batting average and their actual batting average, it's same for slugging and for WOBA, they're top 3 in the league in all 3 of those in how much of a difference there is in the negative in all 3 of those stats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so essentially the expected is much higher than what we're actually getting out in results.
Correct. So there is a balancing to happen at some point. Now, how much of a balancing that remains to be seen. But when you have a team that's hitting a collective 218 and we're expected to be hitting closer to 250, I mean, that those few hits that we're missing that we haven't gotten, I mean, the games that we've played would win us at least 1, maybe 2 games. So it's that close of margins. That's just how this team's going to operate this year. And some of those bounces will come back around, like they did in Pittsburgh yesterday on Tuesday. That game, that 9th inning, we seemed to get more bounces, which was good to see.
Evened out a little bit from the first game, and highlighting that series specifically, right? Like a couple things that I liked. Game 1, it had the potential to be a blowout, and we didn't just lay down and take our woes, right? We actually put together some better at bats towards the end of the game. We even really had a chance to tie it up, or even maybe take the lead if we got on a little bit of a rally there at the end. Unfortunately, Torque struck out on a Javi Baez pitch, if I ever do say myself. But it didn't seem like there was death, and there wasn't this cloud amongst the team. And then you fast forward to the next game, right, where things are looking really negative and we're really down bad. And then you have a couple amazing plays in the field, mostly highlighted by Vierling out in the outfield. And it completely changes the momentum of the game. And they find themselves winning, coming back and winning and salvaging a series that really looked like the Pirates were going to pirate. I mean, the beginning of this year for the Pirates has been really, really good. And honestly, we kind of saw why, right? They're a scrappy baseball team, kind of like we have that DNA in us too, but they actually have put together a really, really good kind of through line core that is able to kind of push them through a lot of games. I still wonder about their pitching overall. I think they displayed some better than actually advertised pitching that we were supposed to get in the series. I think Perez, the Tigers' offense did not have a good plan against Perez, and that perfectly segues into my next takeaway is that starting pitching for this team, as you know, for the Tigers offense, has been a complete enigma to them, and they cannot solve it as of right now. You look at all 11 of our games, and 80% of them have been won by the late innings. Not necessarily all comeback fashion, but they've all been decided late or one run or very, very close, whatever it may be. They're all decided late. And that points to poor execution against the starting pitching, which surprises me on a couple different levels because I always feel like AJ's plan is a good one. Like, and I just feel like they're just maybe not going out and executing. But if this team wants to succeed, and if this team truly wants to get to the heights that we think it can, and kind of flipping some of the narrative, and if the Guardians ever slow down, have a chance to win the Central, then we have got to start attacking starting pitching a lot better. We cannot depend on the bullpen to always break down. There's some really good bullpen arms throughout the league that throw, whether it be complete heat, whether it be complete filth. There's a lot of good bullpen arms out there, and we can't always depend on them to fail and not throw up zeros and walk a bunch. We got lucky because the Pirates bullpen really is one of the worst in baseball. I mean, they've walked, I think it's the lower fifth of the most amount of batters in all of baseball, the first, 11, 12 games or whatever. And so we can't always hope and pray for that luck to come through. We've got to start having a better plan of execution against these starters. And it starts at the first trip to the lineup. I think there's a lot of still anxiousness and kind of like what we were saying, passive trepidation where, they're unsure to swing, they're in between, they don't know what pitch to sit on, they don't really have a plan. It's very obvious, right? And then the second time through the lineup, they're getting completely turned around because these pitchers are introducing, a third or fourth pitch, and it's completely jacking up their timing. And they're like, oh, well, now we really can't do anything. Again, there are some great starters that we've faced. They're even in the A's series, there are some okay arms in that rotation. But if we want to set a good precedent, we've got to come out swinging, and whether that means score early or set the bar that, hey, we're going to get this starter out by the fourth or fifth inning, and then maybe we can depend on the bullpen to break down if we make them pitch more innings. What have you seen from the approach against the starters that may be a little bit different from the bullpen arms against an offense that, is slumping in a couple different facets?
From 30,000 feet, this is how I'm seeing it. They are being overly patient against the starters. I mean, case in point, Parker Meadows is top 3 in the entire Major League Baseball, in all of Major League Baseball, in pitches seen per at bat, which is awesome. I think that's really good for him.
That's a great step.
He's above 5 pitches seen per at bat, which is great for your leadoff hitter. But that kind of is embodying the whole team, because they do that for the most part. They're seeing a ton of pitches, but they don't do anything with the pitches that they can hit. I mean, if you even just going back to that Martin Perez start yesterday, there were so many pitches over the plate that
down the heart
that they could have hit very hard. I remember 2 Matt Vierling at bats specifically where he was bailing out or diving out of the way or moving his hands, expecting the ball to be somewhere where it wasn't, and getting rung up on pitches that were on the black or even, closer to the middle of the plate, where it feels like they don't have a plan, like you said, and their goal is to see a ton of pitches and see if that can, lead to something. But you have to have a plan. And then you go to the relievers, and it feels like the urgency sets in that, should have set in a little earlier in the game, where, they're like, okay, well, we can't, against a reliever, we're not going to, make him throw too many pitches. Like, he's a reliever. He's going to be out in this inning anyway. So if he throws 20, 25 pitches, oh well, in a 2-game series against the Pirates, that's not going to matter. So I feel like the urgency comes back, and then I mean, even at that point, it could work against them too, because then they start to get a little over anxious and swing when they're probably shouldn't be swinging. They're just all turned around. It feels like a lot of them are in their own heads. I loved the approach yesterday in the first inning against Perez. Mm-hmm. They swung early. Yeah. They swung often. 3 straight singles not straight, just 3 singles. I think it was Vierling, Riley, and Torque.
Yep.
With Canna striking out. But I mean, they were swinging the first 3 pitches, and they were swinging hard like they knew what they were trying to do. And I was like, okay, they kicked it. Cool, awesome. And second inning rolls around, and it's the same old, get into a 2-2, 1-2, 2-1 count. You've already seen 3-4 pitches, and then you just bail on the at-bat completely. So that's probably where most of my frustration is coming from, because there are a lot of great pitches to hit that the entire lineup is just looking at, watching, or they're missing them, which is even more concerning.
Yeah, and it's a good point too, because it's interesting, because those 2 Pirate games, we got out to an early lead, right? 1-0. I think, maybe in both of them we could have gotten a little bit more out of the inning than just the 1 run, and maybe we were a little too complacent, but we did come out swinging, right? And then it's just like, what happened? Like as a pitcher, you throw 1 mediocre inning, give up a run, whatever, and then you sit down, watch your guys bat. Depending on how long that takes, in between those innings, you have the pitcher on the ropes, and then when it doesn't even matter if it's first, second inning, whatever. You got to come out with that same kind of approach and that same kind of determination to be like, okay, it's not that we got the 1 run. Casey can go do his thing. Mize can go do his thing now. No, it's like, okay, we got to add on now. And it seems like that adding on portion is just not happening, which is interesting, because we're usually, okay, let's get it started, but it's like, no, Cole Keith hit a nice little oppo single, RBI, love it. Torque, great ball up the middle, over 100 mile an hour off the bat, fantastic. Okay, we got a run, and then it's just like nothing for 8 innings. And we're like, all right, that's strange. So they've got to find their footing. They've got to find a better approach against these starters, and it's not going to get any easier from here. I mean, the Twins have a solid rotation, and again, like I hate to say that there's an important series ever in the second week of April, but they're a division rival, and they've won the Central the last couple of years, and we're in a position where we want to beat them. Now, are they off to the greatest start? No, they're not, but doesn't matter. Pretty much any team can beat any team at any given time. To that end, though, there is one player that I need to give flowers to, and he deserves all the flowers he can get at the moment, because he's turning out to be a really, really... he has contributed the most to our success as anyone on the ballpark, and that's Gio Urshela. I mean, here's a guy who we have spent $1.5 million on, basically pennies compared to the Shohei Ohtanis of the world. Signed late in the spring, kind of out of nowhere. Defense is solid, right? More of a defensive glove first kind of player, but his contact tool, which he showed off in spring and now it carries over into the regular season, he just puts the ball in play. And he seems to kind of have that clutch gene where he can read a moment, he can feel a moment, and he's like, this is where I'm going to step up, right? Obviously, he came up big in the home opener, became the home opener hero. Didn't have a lot of chances in the next 2 A's games. And then the Pirates series, he shows up and he shows out. He's currently in the 99th percentile in expected batting average, going back to Baseball Savant, like you were talking about earlier. His expected batting average for this year is 390. 390. And he's in the 93rd percentile for the sweet spot percentage, which You would think would kind of correlate with hard hit rate, but he's nowhere near the top in hard hit rate. He's actually near the bottom in hard hit rate. But that's the thing. He just puts the bat on the ball, and often it's either up the middle or just kind of the other way, and he pushes it, and he gets timely hits at important points. What's kind of crazy is, his expected batting average is 390, and I just looked over his actual average is 387. So, it's right on par. And he hasn't done much in way of walks or getting hit by pitch at all because his on base percentage is 387. So, of course, all of these things are going to level out. But to have a player that is kind of this echelon of, is he going to be good? Is he not going to be good? What does it mean for a team to just sign more depth instead of, signing someone like a Matt Chapman for third base, which is a premier position, right? That's a position that warrants a really good player at. And instead, of course, we're going to take, a little bit the backseat approach. We're going to say, nope, this is how much money we have to spend. This is the people we want at third base, and we're going to do, the mix and match kind of thing. And he's played well against lefties, and he's played great against righties, which is, I think, what Hinch really wanted to see and test out. And he just has a competitive attitude towards him, and I think he fits the DNA of this team. What have you liked out of Gio Urshela so far?
One thing that is very interesting to me, when you think of a player who expected batting average is super high, you think of hard hit rate, you think of hitting the ball, a long ways, all of those kinds of things. And he completely bucks that trend. He has, Case, are you familiar with BABIP at all?
Oh, the BABIP gods. Oh, yes.
For those who don't know, that is batting average on balls in play. So that's his batting average on balls that he put in play. His batting average, his BABIP this year is 462. And the way he is supplying that is by having a 46.2% line drive rate as compared to the 25% that is the average for the league. So he's putting the ball in play. He's hitting line drives, not necessarily hard. I mean, the hit in Detroit against Oakland comes to mind, where he turned a 99-mile-an-hour fastball down the line the opposite way for a double. Not necessarily hard, just put it in the right place, hit it for a line drive, and got rewarded for it. So just trying to do those types of things is making him successful. I don't know if a 462 BABIP is sustainable for the entire season. Some of those hits are going to stop falling for him. Not to disparage, because he has been the lone shining star really throughout all of the games that have been played so far by the Tigers. But it's nice to see a guy who's focused on putting the ball in play rather than, waiting for the pitcher to walk you. So
another Scott Harris guy, another Scott Harris win, where he just identifies these guys like, yep, that guy can help us win. And he's not going to be flashy. He's not going to be a lot of money to spend. And he is exactly what this team needs. Sign him, right? I think, and we'll get into it a little bit later, but now with the injury to Andy Ibanez, I think Gio's role becomes even more expanded. Mm-hmm. I think his ability to stay in at bats against righties is key. And I honestly, he hasn't done a whole lot against lefties just yet, but he's, his whole mantra is against lefties. So we'll see where the year takes him, hopefully. And, and this is another point too, he's battling back from his own injury too. I mean, talk about breaking a pelvis. What a weird injury, but every time someone says it, I hurt. I hurt a lot, because it's how do you even come back from that? It's such an abnormal injury, and it's such an integral part of your body. And it's okay, I guess you're gonna be in a whole brace for however, you imagine months on end, and you just can't move, you can't do anything. And so, to come back and be able to compete take a year off, basically be able to come back and compete and hit major league pitching is not something to take lightly. So credit to him. All the flowers go to him. He has had a great start to the year. I hope it continues, and I hope it kind of cascades down onto the rest of the team, because they could take a couple pointers from someone like Gio Urshela. So what are your few takeaways from the weekend series and the Pirate series?
Yeah, we'll get through these pretty quickly here. To go back to what you were saying a little earlier, I did some digging on the Tigers' record under AJ Hinch against teams at or below 500 as compared to teams above 500. It's a pretty mixed bag altogether. Against teams better than 500, they've only had one winning season, and that was back in 2021. They were really, really bad against teams better than 500 last year, going 30-52.
Mm-hmm.
But, the one season where we can say they probably had the most success was also last year, when they won the games they were supposed to win against teams that were 500 or worse, when they went 48-32. So the correlation there probably is you need to beat the teams that aren't good in order to be a decent baseball team. And then you can start taking wins away from the good teams, rather than vice versa, a la 2022, when you weren't good against either and couldn't beat teams that are 500 or worse. So just an interesting total. When you're under 500 against both of those groups as a whole throughout AJ's whole tenure, obviously we've seen the results the last few years. Any thoughts on those numbers?
I think it's interesting. The 500 or worse in 2021 is basically the exact same in 2022, but we played a lot more against 500 or worse teams.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, yeah, in 2022 we were dismal, right, against good teams. But in 2021 we just had so much more success against those better than 500 teams. I think that's where the narrative comes from of the, oh, we're better against better teams. We just seem to show up. But I think it's funny, like 2022 just seems to be a year that everyone wants to forget, and rightfully so. And then to see the progress in 2023, right, where we're actually playing above 500 against teams that are not good, and really not something that we should balk at and say, oh no, I don't know if we're gonna win this game. And also too, the difference, and this is kind of like, to the point of the long game, right? Like the difference between a solid record against bad teams or a solid record against good teams is so minute, right? There's so many games to be played, and to take like a sample size like 11 or 12 games and try to extrapolate or project on what this team is going to do is incredibly difficult. It's why we don't necessarily do it professionally, but I think it all goes to show that we're trending in a positive direction. And obviously 2024, we haven't played any teams that are above 500 just yet. So we'll see. We have yet to find out. We're going to come up against a few of them here towards the end of April. So we'll see how it all goes.
Just as a clarification as well, those stats are all against the final records of all of these teams. So a team that they played in April of 2022 who ended the season at or below 500, whichever way they fell. So maybe not at the time, maybe teams playing better or worse. It was just the only way to kind of divvy up those stats. My next take goes into my guy Skubal. He had his second start against the A's, and a couple quick notes on that start. His changeup usage, and you mentioned this offseason, I believe, Casey. His changeup usage has gone up a little bit. He went up from 24.5% last year to, in his two starts this year, he's using it 25.7% of the time, so 1.2%. Not a whole lot on paper, but that's quite a few pitches over an entire season. He seems to be getting quite a bit of swing and miss on that pitch this year, so I would imagine that will continue until it starts getting hit, or if it ever gets hit. So that was really good to see from him. He's sacrificing some slider usage, which I think we both really like, and a little bit more sinker changeup from him, a little more speed to this pitch that he's getting some downward movement on. And I think he's having a lot of good success with it. The one thing of concern for Skubal this year, his four seam velocity has dipped between starts this year. 96.6 to 95.3. You could attribute that somewhat to the cold weather, I think. The more concerning thing is it declined quite significantly in his last start against the A's between innings and even like mid-start. So the first three innings, I believe he was sitting an average of 96.3, 96.4 to the last three innings of his start where he was averaging 94, low 94s. So, not a whole lot to be super concerned about yet, but something I'm going to be keeping an eye on that can lead to more hard hit balls. Going into this last little tidbit, we just can't go back to the Skubal that gives up a bunch of homers. He's given up a home run per start these first two starts, and that was the detriment of 2022 Skubal. He almost led the league in home runs allowed, and that's really where you don't want to be, especially if you're wanting to be an ace of a ball club.
Can't win a Cy Young by giving up all those home runs. That much is for sure. Did you ever get a chance to watch the Pitching Ninja interview that he did?
Bits and pieces of it I've seen. I've not watched the whole thing through.
Gotcha. Yeah, he went pretty in depth about that changeup, and it's always been apparent to me that he needed to throw that pitch more. It seems like it's even gotten better as the years have gone on, and he was talking a little bit. He grips it like a normal circle changeup, but it's the way that he holds it, and of course this is going to get into seam shifted wake and all of the crazy new age pitching stuff. But essentially, he throws it so that the laces are not hitting the air, and so it can kind of it has some tendencies to just do things that are look anti-gravity, right? It looks like it's kind of defying gravity in some aspects because of the way the seams are interacting with the air. And he was saying that for whatever reason, and this I can relate pretty heavily to this because he's not he's a big pronator of the fast or of the ball in general. So obviously throws a slider quite a bit. He throws a fastball that but I think I said he is a big pronator. Sorry, he's not a big pronator of the pitch. Of course, pronating is the opposite to your handedness. Going right. I'm trying to explain this in the best way possible, but without visuals. But essentially, right, you're pronating, you're going the opposite way. You're kind of like slider in glove side. So he throws a lot of sliders. He throws a lot of things that are easy for him to grip onto. And circle changeup goes arm side, and you have to pronate your hand typically to get that kind of trajectory on the ball. What he was saying, it was super interesting. He was saying that all he thinks about is trying to cut the fastball. So he grips it like a circle changeup, and he tries to cut it. So almost like he's throwing a slider. I have no idea how this pitch goes the exact opposite way. Again, seam shifted way, because not a lot of it makes a whole lot of sense. And it goes the exact opposite way that he is thinking about throwing it. And it's just these crazy things that, and obviously Pitching Ninja has all these great interviews that he does, but it's just the way the body, or even the way the mind, right, has to adapt to throwing at such a high level and at such a consistent level. And this is what I got to do. This is what I got to think about in order for the ball to do that. Sometimes in golf, it's the same kind of thing where it's like I have this swing thought, or I kind of have this moment in my mind where I'm like, okay, this is my cue. This is the only place I'm going to get to. This is how I know how to hit the ball straight. And baseball has obviously got to have so many of those moving parts. The fact that his changeup usage has gone up is zero surprise to me, because He's realizing, and Federer's realizing that hitters just can't hit it, right? There's no way for them to really sit either the fastball or the changeup when there's such a good disparage and difference between those two pitches. When he's sitting 95, 96, that's awesome. That's fantastic. But the reason why that's so good is because he's throwing a changeup over the plate that has crazy movement, 83, 84. And there's so much difference between those pitches that the variance is able to make them both play up. I think that pitch is only going to get better. And to your point about the velo, I think, and I kind of touched on it when he was in his spring outings, came out throwing 99. I do worry if he's going to kind of gas himself out, and we've all seen what's happening right now and amongst Major League Baseball, where there seems to be a little bit of an epidemic. Is there, isn't there, of the Tommy John situation. A lot of pitchers seem to go down at once with some elbow stiffness and some elbow soreness, and Shane Bieber turned it into Tommy John, and Garrett Cole is out for a couple months, and there's a couple others that stick out. And now we're in a situation where Skubal is doing the same exact thing, throwing super hard, high intensity every pitch. I just don't want to see this guy get hurt, no matter what. I want to see him pitch for as long as he can, at the best level that he can. But I don't want to see him sacrifice years of his career to try to pitch himself into a Cy Young conversation or whatever it may be. I think he's good enough, and I think he's got the good enough stuff to be a part of that conversation no matter what. I'm also incredibly concerned about the way he came off the mound against the A's.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was probably the most concerning part of the start. He's an ultra competitive guy. I get it. I love it to some extent. But how mad he got, and for how really not bad it was, I know 4 earned runs, whatever the stat line ended up being, that's not great, and you kind of want to show up against everyone. But we won the game, and it wasn't like the world was falling down, or there wasn't a chance for us to still solidify the win. And he acted like he just gave up 4 grand slams and just lost us the World Series. And what is happening? This is not that big of a deal. So again, he wanted to show out against the opening day crowd. We got the win. It was not the end of the world. And he needs to protect himself, because that much violence that he displayed in the dugout, he's going to get hurt. But I don't know if you had the same reaction to that opening day start, but I thought he was just fine. It was going to be okay.
No, he was definitely good. He had a good start. Wasn't great. Wasn't fantastic. Clearly, it wasn't what he wanted. I think we could say that for sure. I don't even really mind the antics so much. The left-handed spike of the glove was the one thing that I kind of cringed at.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You just worry about an injury with the left arm. He's had injuries to his left arm already in his career. You just don't want to aggravate something or pull something or tear something, So if you need to get out your anger in another way, you need to toss a cooler or something, take a bat to something. Again, I don't really mind that as much. You want your guys to be competitive, and there's no way you're going to sit there and tell him to not be competitive. So, not maybe as concerned about it as you, just the form in which you use to display said displeasure. It could be better. My last little thing, and this was super quick, but I'm probably going to touch on this half the podcast we do this year. But Jason Benetti is a revelation in the booth. It's not anything that we haven't already heard or talked about on this podcast before, but I want to mention it over and over and over again, because it is a good feeling to be able to turn on a Tigers game and not immediately throw it onto mute, so you do not have to hear whatever conglomeration of broadcast team is in the booth.
That's a little harsh.
Jason Benetti is so good, dude.
Oh man, I wasn't gonna bring this up, but I have to now, because I'm just it's top of mind, and I'm just not gonna be able to stop thinking about it. Bally Sports, obviously they do other things besides just the baseball, the baseball games. They handle the Red Wings and Pistons games. They also do a lot of regional sports coverage. And that's where Matt Shepard has found himself. And let me tell you, he is living his best life. He was covering a high school basketball game rather. I think the men's and women's, boys and girls at that point, like, in that age range, they were going for like a title or title win or whatever. And I think he was calling the game, but he was doing an interview with like the superintendent and stuff. I'm just like, man, good for you, Matt Shepard. You're still out there doing things. I know it probably didn't end how you wanted it with the Tigers, but I appreciate him still going quietly and also just kind of letting this new era happen. And I'm sure he's happy for Benetti, but he was given a great interview, and I sat and watched. It was 5 minutes, and I sat and watched the whole thing. I do not care about regional sports coverage whatsoever. Zero care at all. But I was like, I got to see what Matt Shepard's doing. So he's doing well. But yeah, of course. But Benetti is as advertised. I think he's even better than people maybe even gave him credit for however long he was with Chicago. I think again, there might be some left to be desired in the analyst role. I think it's kind of day by day, and really not even just person by person. I think people have good days, people have bad days, but for the most part, he's having a lot of fun. I think he brings a really fun level of quirkiness to the entire broadcast, where they're doing like weird zany stuff with the broadcast now, where they're just having fun with it, and they the interview that Johnny Kane and Simo, Craig Monroe, did on the Yellow Bridge, on the Clemente Bridge in Pittsburgh, and then they did the transition to Benetti just with Johnny Kane, and Benetti's just standing there all like, it's kind of, I don't know, he was like in his feelings. He was deep in his feelings, just looking at the water and just like, and they were talking about the eclipse and stuff. It's just like, this is so zany and weird, and like, this is exactly what this team needs. I don't know. I think he's great. He is quickly becoming, already the top of the echelon of Tigers broadcasters, and really just broadcasters in general. I mean, we really have someone like Dan Dickerson in the TV booth, and that's something special, because he's really, really good at what he does. Is he perfect? No one is in that role. Does every joke land? Definitely not. But he's a special guy.
Just the chemistry between specifically him, Craig Monroe, and Johnny Kane is really fun to watch. And
they got a boys club going on.
And it's even made the last two games against Oakland, and then the first game against Pittsburgh, it made it somewhat tolerable for the amount of time that we watched it. So, at least for me. But yeah, that's what I got. What do we? You said we were going to talk a little bit about our boy Andy.
Our boy Andy. Maybe he's in the running for most time spent on the IL already.
Well, he's in the lead.
Well, Sawyer Gibson Long still,
still on the roster,
I know you were not wanting to talk about it. We were kind of purposefully not talking about the Tigers' weekly injury report, because we were just kind of crossing our fingers that it stayed like that. But for a whole month, basically, it was a single player, Sawyer Gibson Long, who conveniently has a couple nagging injuries and wasn't a part of the whole rotation battle during spring training. So he's kind of sidelined. I guess now there's some forearm stiffness too. So he seems to, really, really be out of it for the foreseeable future. And then sadly, but surely, we have our first mystery injury. And it all kind of started pretty weird, where on whoever found it is got to be doing their detective skills. Wensiel Perez put up on his Instagram, and I don't even know if it was him directly or like
it was him reposting his agency, I believe.
Yeah, just so strange. It was obviously a different language, and there was some deciphering that had to happen, but essentially it was saying, Wensiel Perez is getting the call to the majors. Congrats, Wensiel Perez. I'm making your gonna make your major league debut. And it's like, what?
He is?
Excuse me? And so. Right, exactly. And so it's like, oh my gosh. And of course, this was, first day of the Pirates series. They don't open the clubhouse till way late, right? Like 3 or 4. And so we're just kind of sitting, twiddling our thumbs, like, what is happening? My first thought, your first thought, I think, was something's going on with Javi. They're finally starting to talk about it. What's going on with Javi? Here we go. And then I started to take a step back. I'm like, wait, he hasn't really been playing the infield very much. So what's happening there? Who could it be in the wait? Are they already giving up on Parker Meadows? I a couple moments of them. I was like, thank God they're not doing that. I know he's had a slow start or whatever, and we got to talk about you and jinxing people. But, realistically, that didn't make a lot of sense if they were going to already replace him. So it's like, what's happening here? So then it kind of started to get clear that, okay, there might be an injury that we're not aware of. So, yep, sure enough, 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock rolls around. AJ confirms that Andy Ibanez, unfortunately, who has been, again, he had a great spring, been pretty steady here, hasn't all totally translated to the regular season, but he's had a couple clutch hits for us, and he's an integral part of that third base platoon. And strained hamstring, seemed like he did it at the tail end of the A's series. So hamstrings are tricky. They'll bite you. So I don't know when we'll see him. He's obviously on the 10-day IL right now. And then, to your credit, to your point, because Wensiel is on the 40-man, seems like he's the guy to get the call. I still question whether or not it should have been Malloy, if you're willing to kind of go the outfielder route, because Perez is, again, playing a lot more outfield than infield. But Wensiel Perez is the guy. You and I have a little bit different ideas of how his spring went. I do think there is still a solid major league player in there. We've just been talking about Wensiel Perez forever, right? And so when you've been talking about someone like that, it's like, okay, when's it going to happen for our guy? Currently, and I guess before the call-up, he was had 7 hits, a home run, 5 RBIs. He was having a 212 average. He had 33 at-bats and like a 297 on-base percentage. So, he's doing exactly what he needs to do. I definitely think this was probably a little preemptive for him to make his debut. Seems to be that depth washes up or dries up pretty quickly because we have Ryan Kreidler, who is down in the minors. He has a fractured finger. And Eddie Leonard, who we are all very excited about, Mr. Cash Considerations himself, also is injured. And so depth in the infield is already kind of washed up. Kreidler just cannot catch a break. And again, now he's going to be out for however long. So it's crazy how fast these depth pieces dry up. But Wensiel's had his chance to make his debut. He's had a couple solid contact, a couple solid at-bats with or at the plate, rather. He has not had a chance to start just yet, so we'll see how he kind of factors in. Something you reminded me of, he is a switch hitter, so that immediately knocks him up a few notches for me. Love myself some switch hitters. And he seems to have a better all-around approach against lefties, so we'll see how AJ chooses to use him. But what have you seen out of Wensiel so far, and why do you think maybe he was the one to get the call?
Well, I think most of it comes from versatility with the switch hitting. He still can play in the infield if needed. He's learning himself a little bit of outfield, and like you said, we've been talking about him for a long time. Just for him to be able to make this happen is a big deal. The Tigers signed him, I believe, either at 16 or 17 as an international free agent. So to be able to get that guy up in the major leagues in any event is really awesome. It's just really going to come down to how long they really want guys to marinate in AAA. One guy to keep an eye on for future reference is Jace Young. He's had himself a real hot start to his year at AAA. So that's good to see. Hopefully he doesn't get the full-on Colt Keith treatment from 2023.
Colt Keith 2.0.
But
Keith 2.0.
With the infield depth drying up, you can see his spot on that list moving up slowly but surely. He was the only guy still not on the 40 man. And I'm looking at it right now. You look at, Andy, it goes down with the injury, and your options are either put Buddy Kennedy in, bring him up,
Hit a bomb the other night.
or
Solid.
or like we said, we have to bring up Wenzel Perez. So limited options. You could, I guess, have brought up Badu, but he's had a slow start to AAA too.
What about Keston? I know the position doesn't necessarily map out, but he could play third base. He can hold his own at third base. He's mostly a first baseman, I understand. I really thought Keston would be the first call, but I don't know.
It's not on the 40 man.
It's interesting. I get it. And this all goes back to the path of least resistance. I completely understand. But he does have all of those kind of levers in his contract, and so eventually we either have to see him in Detroit or we don't see him at all in Detroit. And I think there's still a really solid competitive bat in Keston Hiura. And I think just letting him go would be a unfortunate reality and unfortunate end to that whole situation. So I think there were a couple choices before Wenzel, but I think, to your point, it was about the versatility. It was about what he can bring to the team and kind of how we mix and match with the rest of the matchups that we have going forward. So sad for Andy. Hopefully he gets better. Get well soon, Andy. Let's go around the league for a minute. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about the start of the season, how teams have done. We're only, 12, 13 games at max into the year, but you can already start to feel out some narratives. So going through our biggest surprise teams and our biggest disappointment teams, who's on your radar for some surprising ones and maybe some disappointments that you had?
The surprise would probably be the Red Sox. They got pretty well reamed out by everybody by how little they really did in the offseason, especially on the offensive side. They really didn't sign anybody much. The guys they did get for the pitching staff, Giolito got hurt, and then you talk about your guy Trevor Story getting hurt early in the season. So you look at that, and they still managed to come home from that all West Coast trip before this Orioles series, and they were 7-3. They lost the first two to the Orioles since, I kind of made this pick, but being 7-5, almost all of those games in the West Coast time zone, that's pretty impressive for a team that, didn't add a whole ton and actually lost a lot of their punch early in the season or even before the season even began. When you talk about a team that has disappointed, the Houston Astros have had the most curious start to their year. They are, as of end of games here on Wednesday, they are 4-8, and two of their wins, it took one no-hitter from Blanco, and one in his next start, he almost threw another one, and they managed to win that game too. So without this Blanco character, they would most likely be 2-10. And for a team that's been the scourge of the AL West for almost a decade now, it's not where you want to be. And of course they'll get Verlander back here soon, and they'll slowly start to piece it together, I'm sure, at some point. But when you talk about a disappointing start, that's not great.
People were wondering what it was going to be like if the Astros didn't win the West. I guess we'll never find out. Well, you might find out this year. It's funny. I wonder what's happening in Space City. They're probably the world is collapsing in on them. We were on back-to-back watch though for that Blanco start. That Blanco start. I was like, wow, this actually might happen. A guy who I think he's 29 or 30 and making his 9th major league start, throws a no-hitter in his 8th major league start. Like, well, what is happening? He's kind of coming out of nowhere. So I think Boston is a really good pick by you because, and it's funny, you were going through and changing the records as before we were going through, and it's like, oh, and now it doesn't look as good as it used to, or like one game. And it's like, again, we're back to this thing. It's one game, but it's just for some reason, the optics of it are just, it looked a lot worse or a lot better a game ago or whatever. But yeah, 7-5 for this team, where no one thought they were going to be able to do anything, is pretty. It's pretty interesting. And this isn't one of my teams, but you mentioned the all West Coast teams. Mariners. That's all I'm gonna say. Mariners. How are those 90 wins coming? Where are we gonna start? When are we gonna start counting them? When is that gonna happen? I don't know. Just saying. Just saying.
Castillo has a good start.
47 fastballs in a row later. I went a little bit different approach with mine, and I'm wondering if you're gonna pick up where I'm kind of thinking on the levels. For my surprise, I have a tie, but both positive and negative surprises. So for my surprise, that makes that's like like a positive in the positive direction. A lot of wins that we did not think were even possible. The Pirates. I mean, we saw it firsthand. These last couple games, they have a competitive baseball team, and we all looked at them and kind of turned our heads when they signed Chapman. And it's like, what the heck are you giving $10 million to this guy for when you're gonna use him all of 5 times in the year when you're winning games? And it's like, oh well, I guess we spoke too soon on that, because they're using him in leverage spots. They're 9-3 now. They have a solid offense that just seems to kind of get going when it matters most. And the pitching staff is doing just enough. I don't think there's any stars in there, and I think the bullpen is definitely questionable outside of Chapman. But they have something brewing, and I mean, O'Neal Cruz should have played basketball. Like, let's all just be real here. He should have played basketball, but for some reason he's playing baseball, and it worked out for him. So good on him. The other team that I'm quite surprised in, and maybe this belongs in disappointment, but I think it's just more of a surprise than anything. Dude, the Marlins. What is happening in Miami? I mean, you go from sneaking into the playoffs last year. You arguably have a better team, but really it's just a lot of mixing and matching now. And I know you've had a couple unfortunate situations with your starters. I get it. But you still have the manager of the year, Skip Schumacher. You still have a solid core around. I think it's start time. I think they got to look themselves in the mirror and say, what was it, Tim Anderson? Is it Tim Anderson? Is the curse real? And maybe start to evaluate their decision to sign him as the starting shortstop, because that team is not 2-11 bad. They're just not. And it's very surprising. There's always that team that's in that rut. And obviously we saw last year with the Rays, the Rays were just so good for so long, and then they barely squeaked into the playoffs. And it's like, that's baseball, but at the same time, this team is not that bad. My disappointment so far is the Orioles, which is kind of funny now that they have the same record as the Tigers. But I think that's right. That's why, again, the one game changes the optics of everything.
Yep.
They have a better team than 7-4. They really do. I think their offense up and down, and now they just called up Jackson Holiday, and he just made his major league debut. That lineup up and down, and even into AAA is just stacked. And I mean, they're all in their 20s. They're going to be good for a really long time. I think the pitching has let them down quite a bit. I think they outside of Burns, they have not gotten competitive starts out of the entirety of the rotation. Of course, they have Rodriguez. He looked great in one of his starts. And Bradish is questionable to begin the year, so injury bug is a real thing. But this just goes to show that it's tough to win 100 games, and every single projection has them winning 100 games this year. Not saying they can't do it. Obviously, still a lot of baseball to be played. But starting out 7-4 is quite surprising. And kind of piggyback off of that, other disappointment all around, everyone outside of the Yankees in the AL East, which is supposed to be the best division, arguably in all of baseball, but definitely in the AL, quite disappointing. There's really no one lighting up the world besides the Yankees, who are now 10-3, sorry, because they lost to the Marlins. There's no one lighting fire. And so we'll see how it all shakes out. Again, only 2 weeks into the season, but there's some interesting storylines already starting to brew. Josh, you are very excited about a game that you want to play. Please tell me that I'm not going to make a fool of myself.
Well, no, and I'm going to preface this game with I did some research for this game, and I was shocked at what I found for the answers. So, this is
This
more
is setting me up for failure. I can already tell. This
well.
is right here. I'm gonna make a fool of myself.
I'm telling you off the rip. I would not have gotten anywhere close to these answers right either.
Okay.
So, the game is, I would like for you to name the player with the most and the player with the least amount of WAR per Baseball Reference in the AJ Hinch era for the Tigers. The best player by WAR and the worst player by WAR for the
This
Detroit
is just
Tigers.
two players.
I have a list, the leaderboard here, if you, as it were, and I will tell you where you're at if you do not get it right. But there are some interesting names.
I'm
on
gonna
this
start
list.
I'm gonna start with a benchmark,
Okay.
and I need to put a feeler out here.
Okay.
Just so I can feel, again, where are we at? Is Austin Meadows on this list at all?
No.
Dang. Okay.
Neither list.
What? Well, right. I'm looking at it all as one list of WAR and just like top to down. So, what is the qualifications? What do you have to do to be on this list?
Play
Do we know?
for the Detroit Tigers under AJ Hinch.
Didn't Austin Meadows play under AJ Hinch?
Right. I don't have the complete list of every single player. I have like the top.
Okay.
7 or 8.
Okay.
And
I'm trying to guess the. Oh. Well, okay. Interesting. Huh. Okay. So Austin Meadows is not on. So
He didn't
so
play
what
enough.
you're saying is Austin Meadows. Yeah. So you're saying he didn't play enough, but he also maybe is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
That's what you could be saying. Interesting. Wow. Okay. Okay.
I'm really trying to hate on Austin Meadows early here.
I got to use him as some kind of benchmark. I just got to see where we're at here. I mean, let's get the obvious out of the way. We've got to talk about Riley Green.
Mm-hmm.
Is he in the top 8?
He is. He is third.
Okay. Oh wow. Oh okay. I didn't even think top 5. Wow. Okay.
I will give you the WAR as well. He is at 3.9 WAR.
We have a player that's been higher than 3.9 WAR. Is this collective? This is collective. I'm
Total WAR
Yeah.
over the 4 seasons. Well,
Yep.
3
Yep.
and a bit here.
Oh wow. I'm actually kind of impressed. We have a 4 WAR player. That's insane. I know. Again, it's over the course of 4 years, but okay, third. See, I have one. Obviously, like I need to know where Tarek is. I just don't know if he's played enough. But give me Scooble.
You have guessed the highest WAR player under AJ Hinch for the Detroit Tigers at 5.2 WAR.
Jeez, dude, there is some kind of crazy underlying statistics about his second half last year, aren't there? Holy cow!
Yeah, he had himself a lovely 2023.
Who knew 85 innings or whatever it was, just was going to be that big of a deal? Dang, that's insane. Okay, all right. So now I'm at the benchmark. Do you want me to guess any more for the high level?
I can give you the well, I might give away some other things. So it's up to you. If you want to move on, I would say we'll move on, and then I'll give you some of the keynotes here.
Can I have one stab at the second?
Yeah,
Because I got one and I got 3. I want one stab at the second.
Yeah.
We're not counting someone like Mark Canna, right? Who's like,
Well, again,
we're not counting his WAR.
we are. He was taken into consideration, but he has not played enough.
Okay. Give me Kerry Carpenter.
Kerry Carpenter did not make the list.
Okay. That's fair. I was just kind of going high. Where's Torque? I don't think Torque's second.
No,
That's the easy choice.
Torque is not second.
Okay. Who is second?
Second would be the Candyman, Chamber Candelario, 4.2 WAR. You know how hard that is for me to have a conversation about.
Oh, wait a second.
Mm.
Can you just say that to me one more time?
Yeah, Jamer Candelario is at the second highest WAR under AJ Hinch.
All right.
His 2021 was something to behold.
Yeah.
And
Oh, dude.
3.7 WAR.
Doubles. Dang, that carried the whole time.
Yep,
that was it.
That's all of it.
Dang. Wow. Good for him. Love him. We've said enough about Candy, but I can't stop talking about him. Okay, man. The end. Oh, jeez. Where is our boy? Give me Joey Wentz. Where is he at?
Yeah, Joey Wentz is the third lowest.
Yeah, man, I'm really good at. Whoa, whoa. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm really good at this third situation.
Negative 1.2
really
WAR for our boy Joey.
Good God. I'm curious, and I know he's not going to be on either of this, but where was Miggy? Did you figure out where Miggy was graded?
Oh, yeah, Miggy was taken into consideration. Would you like to guess him?
What his WAR was?
Well, do you want to guess him as being
on this
list?
Where? Like what number he would be at?
I'm asking, are you guessing him as a low WAR member?
No. That's what I'm saying. I'm prefacing that. I'm saying no. I know he's not in the low WAR. I'm pretty sure he's probably middle of the pack. I just didn't know if you did any digging.
Yes, he was taken into consideration.
I feel like I didn't get an answer there. Okay, so you're saying
I looked at his stats and he was put into the pot.
I get it, but I'm worried now that he is one of the lower WAR players, and I don't believe that. Was he? I guess.
Would you like to guess Mickey?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he was the lowest WAR player under the AJ Hinch tenure in the Detroit Tigers.
And so, and what I love here, and I feel like we're getting somewhere here. This is why WAR is a questionable stat all around.
It's not an all-encompassing stat for sure.
For sure, and obviously everyone grades it differently, but they all get around basically the same number. And I don't know if it's the perfect, especially for a player like Miggy, who, right, of course he's a DH, right? That's gonna play a huge role in it. He provides nothing in the field. He plays every day, but is he gonna hit a home run probably once every blue moon, right? And you're talking about a guy who is chasing all of these numbers, all these crazy statistics, and really the only story we had going for us for a solid 4 years. And you're gonna tell me that he was the worst WAR player in all the Tigers, and I'm just like, all right, whatever. So, he had some great numbers. He had some great spurts. He had some great moments. So.
Well, and there's two things to take into consideration on that front. He was consistently right around the same amount of negative WAR all 3 years that he was in this conversation. And again, we're talking about the last 3 years of a guy's career when he's in his late 30s, 40s. So this is not an indictment on Miguel Cabrera's career, clearly.
Right, for sure.
But his 2022 was a bad year, statistically. Mm-hmm. He had a negative 1.1 WAR, and that's a good chunk of this. 2.1, that's over half of it. So the other years he was not as bad, and the amount of leadership, maturity, know-how that he was providing to the team clearly isn't included in this. And I think that was way more valuable than his on-the-field performance as well. So
yeah, that's a fair evaluation.
I was also surprised.
I need to know 2 players. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and that's why you said. That's why you teed it up like you did. I mean, there's definitely some surprising names on here. I need to know 2 players. I don't know if you have them, and again, I don't know where they fall. I need to know where Tyler Nevin is. Mm-hmm. I need to know where Nick Maton is.
Tyler Nevin did not play enough to be on either of the lists. Clearly not the good list. I think he landed around like negative 0.2 WAR or something like that. I did not include him because he wasn't close to being in this conversation. Our boy Nick Maton in one season had the second lowest WAR of any player under AJ Hinch. Okay, negative 1.5. So,
and so this goes back to the whole, there's I'm just putting this out there. Your predictions. You did. Yep, that's all I'm gonna say.
Some other interesting
Anyone who
names.
saw real quick, anyone who saw Nick Maton's spring would have done the same thing you did. Anyone who saw Parker Meadows' spring did the same. It's gonna be fine for Parker Meadows.
I don't anticipate negative 1.5 WAR for Parker Meadows.
Oh,
but
please,
yikes.
please, Lord, no.
Some interesting names on this list. Both of these, we'll start with the good. After the top three of Scooble, Candelario, Green, we have Eduardo Rodriguez at 3.7. We have Casey Mize at 3.3 WAR for this team.
What?
Which is absolutely nuts. And I think
that is pretty surprising.
I think that a lot of that is attributed to just the consistent 2 years he had in the last couple, and he had a really decent 2021. He was at 3.4 WAR in 2021.
Wow.
And I think we forget how hyped and how excited we were for him.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, well, it's easy to do. 2 years of seeing nothing, and shout out to him. I mean, he's put together 2 really good starts so far. His splitters looked as good as advertised when he was back at Auburn. I mean, yeah, I'm excited again for Casey Mize, but that number is surprising for 2021.
And then we've got a whole gaggle of people here right around 3 WAR. Eric Haas, RIP. He had some good, consistent couple years there.
Dude needs to find a job after the spring he had. Jeez.
And then talk about the fleet of bullpen arms here. Jason Foley, Tyler Holton, and there was one other. Nope, those are the only 2. The 2 bullpen arms, both right around 3 WAR. Our boy Javier Baez at 2.8 WAR is.
Yep, I knew he was going to be right in the middle of the pack. Yeah. Well, okay. Oh, okay. Well, I'm telling you that WAR heavily favors defense. Like, it just seems to be like it takes into account defense so much. It's not an offensive stat. It's just not. Like, I mean, it's definitely an all-encompassing stat, but I think it puts a lot of levers and a lot of weight on the defensive side of the ball. And maybe it's because you make more of a difference in the field. Like, when you're making great plays, it matters. And when you're making not good enough plays, it matters, right? I think the crazy part, too, about the Javi Baez situation is he sometimes wouldn't make the great play. And so it's like, and sometimes won't even make the good play. And so it's like, okay, where is this number coming from? So, yeah, I think it just kind of goes to show what is WAR really telling us. But it's over 4-year period. So
only like 2 and a bit for Javi because he didn't play on that 2021
Sorry,
team.
the entire right, 100%. Yeah.
To go into that defensive conversation, a guy on that just barely missed being the worst 3 list. Spencer Torkelson at negative 0.9 WAR. Again, I think a lot of that is, the strikeouts, the struggles. Man, he had such a tough 2022 to watch. And he's still digging himself out of that hole WAR-wise. But just behind him, coming back from the grave like the Undertaker in WWE, is our friend Brian Garcia.
Yeah. Carlos signs himself.
Yeah. Just seeing that name was like, oh my gosh, he's coming back.
You cringed a little bit. WAR is just such an interesting stat, and I think it tells a lot of different stories, and I think it also it got us to a good place of sabermetrics, and I think it wasn't necessarily the stat that even the A's in the early 2000s were really driving towards, but it goes to show that it gets us to a place, but what do you do with that information, right? And it gets us to a spot, but then what are you going to do with it? I think there's more numbers that tell a better story and a more complete story than WAR, but I mean, you look at Shohei Ohtani, which I think if I'm gonna calculate his, I mean, not to be whatever, but I think his WAR totals over the last 4 years probably account for and add up to most of the Tigers team that you looked at.
I mean, he has a 35 career WAR.
Right. So
All of
one
those
player,
players over the last
right?
3 and a bit years did not equal that.
That's just insane. We're we're climbing ourselves out of a deep dark hole, and hey, we're here for it. Some more baseball to be played, as we talked about. We split the series against the Pirates, thankfully. Needed to salvage that one. Of course, off day today. We get back after it against Minnesota tomorrow, hopefully, crossing fingers. I'm hoping that we actually get these games in. There's already talk about Matt Manning being held for a start that he was supposed to make tonight. But he did not make it because maybe the Tigers are trying to hold him and plan for a doubleheader situation. He's just the guy to do it. So already kind of doing some plan B there, but it looks like it's going to be at least the plan for now is Skubal in the first game, Maeda second game, Flaherty, who needs a bounce back really badly after a really bad showing against the A's, but he's got to spot the fastball better. And then it looks like Olsen. So we're not changing up anything come these next few games, but again, it's hard to say of a series that's important in the second week of April, but feels like this is important. Twins, central rivals, got to get off on the good foot against a team that actually is competitive. And I'm sorry, White Sox, it's just the way it is. What are you looking forward to in the Twin series?
Like you said, hopefully the Tigers can keep their the swing decisions of the ninth inning against the Pirates going into these next games. We need to, make home field advantage count here. You like to say going back home we have this advantage, and we really haven't shown it so far this year. We've had one series, to be fair. I still don't understand the whole 2-day series in Pittsburgh and then going right back home, but that is what it is. This Minnesota team has struggled to score on a level that the Tigers can't even talk about. They've scored 10 fewer runs than the Tigers have in one less game. So you just have to hope that they catch them again on a little bit of a slump. They're 4-6 in their last 10, which is their entire record. I don't know why I read that. But yeah, we're hope to score some runs off of them, and that the pitching staff has a little bit of a bounce back. Can't expect the staff to pick up the entire slack of this team. Gotta score some runs.
Dude, when you were talking about how the Twins aren't scoring runs, you reminded me of a meme / just fact that you sent me not too long ago. At one point in the last week, the White Sox had grounded into more double plays than they had scored runs.
I forgot about that.
Dude, I can't believe, and that's the thing, dude. We do not like the White Sox. I don't wish that poorly of a performance on anyone. I am up there with one of the most vocal, we'll say, of being against the White Sox, and even I do not want to see them perform that badly. Oh my gosh, that's just insane. Crazy. Sorry, Griffall. I'm really, really sorry for what you're dealing with over there. Hopefully, you guys get it sorted out. Just not this year. It's not going to be this year. Guys, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you understanding our a little bit wonky schedule sometimes. The consistency is what's important to us, and we want to make sure we at least obviously get a podcast out every week. Mostly on Tuesdays, of course. This week was it was all over the place. So should be back at it for next Tuesday. Hopefully we'll have Tiger games to talk about, and we won't just have rainouts to talk about like we did a couple weeks ago. Also, real quick, it's Masters weekend. It's Masters week. So I'm not gonna lie, Josh, and I hope this is okay to say, I'm putting a little bit more priority on the Masters tournament. Is that sacrilegious? Am I allowed to say that? Did I just upset a lot of people?
I mean, you didn't upset me. I mean, I've got multiple screens that I will be utilizing.
Right,
so
of course. Right, I mean, we're doing the multiple screen thing, but on the TV, I think the Masters is what's going to be there. Assuming all the key players are there, assuming and Tiger, you're going to make the cut. What his tee time will be on Saturday, I don't know. But the important part is, Josh, are you listening to me? Are you listening to me right now? You get in close. He is gonna have a tee time on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, mark my words. He is gonna have a tee time on Saturday, and that's the win. That doesn't matter. He's gonna make the cut. That's the most important part.
He's got to break old Freddie's record, right?
Oh my gosh! Please. Josh, where can the kids find you?
We are on all of the socials at Old English D Pod. If you guys wouldn't mind giving us a like on a post, more specifically, if you wouldn't mind giving us a rating on wherever you listen to the podcast, if you want to leave us a review, we will read your review out on the pod. Whenever we get those in, we try to read those out, as long as you're not saying something horrible about us. We try not to read those because, nobody likes that. But if you wouldn't mind giving us a kind word, it helps get our podcast out there to more people so we can, have these conversations in front of some more Tigers fans like you. So we appreciate it. Go give us a follow, like, comment, rating, review, whatever you want to do. We'd appreciate all of it.
Fantastic. Josh, watch some golf over the weekend on top of some baseball. It's going to be a great weekend of sports. We are fully in the spring swing. It is happening. Real sports are actually being played. Not at all aside to the NFL. It is totally a jab to the NFL. Thank you guys so much for listening. Josh, thank you so much for joining me. And as always, go Tigers.